Prologue, the feeling of having been here before. It often begins quietly, not as a thought, but as a feeling. A place feels familiar, even though you've never been there. A moment touches something in you that feels older than your life. A smell, a sound, a certain kind of light, and suddenly the world seems to whisper, "You know this." And a story forms almost automatically. I've been here before. I lived another life. This isn't my first time. We call this idea reincarnation. It's ancient, comforting, and deeply human, because it promises meaning, continuity, a universe where nothing is wasted. And maybe that's why it appears again and again across cultures, not because everyone is sharing the same doctrine, but because everyone is sharing the same fear, the same longing, and the same question beneath all questions. What happens to me when I die? Tonight, we're going to explore this gently but clearly. We'll look at why reincarnation feels so true, and why it might not be possible in the literal way it's often imagined. This is not an attack on spirituality. It's not a debate. It's a careful inquiry. And if we do it honestly, we may discover something quieter and deeper than the promise of coming back. So let's begin with the question that almost nobody asks, even though everything depends on it. Part 1. The spiritual question rarely asked. Who returns? Reincarnation sounds simple. One life ends, another begins. Something continues. But the foundation of reincarnation is a claim about identity. So we have to ask, what exactly is supposed to come back? Your name? Your personality? Your memories? Your emotional patterns? Your sense of I? Even in one lifetime, none of that stays stable. You are not who you were at 7, not who you were at 17, not who you were 5 years ago. Your worldview changes. Your fears change. Your desires change. Your temperament changes. And memory is the least reliable witness of all. So if you come back without memory, without personality continuity, without any recognizable you, in what meaningful sense is that you? This is not just philosophical wordplay, it's the core issue. Because reincarnation is often sold as personal survival, but the common version of it requires personal erasure. And that leads to an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe the thing we think of as me is not a thing at all. Maybe it's a process, a pattern, a story continuously rewritten by the mind. If that's true, then the self is not a traveler. It's a temporary shape. Think of a wave. A wave rises. It has a shape, a direction, a recognizable form. For a moment, you could point to it and say, that one. And then it collapses back into the ocean. Where did the wave go? Nowhere. Nothing left the water. Nothing returned. The wave didn't travel. It simply stopped being a wave. If the self is wave-like, a temporary pattern in experience, then reincarnation becomes difficult to define, because patterns can dissolve. But patterns don't migrate the way we imagine objects migrate. So the first part of this story isn't a conclusion, it's a question. If you want reincarnation to be true, you must first tell the truth about what you actually are. And that leads directly to the next issue. What if consciousness itself is not personal property? Part 2. Consciousness has no owner. We feel like consciousness is ours, my thoughts, my feelings, my inner world behind my eyes. But what if that feeling is misleading? Many spiritual traditions suggest that consciousness is not something you possess. You don't own awareness the way you own an object. Instead, you appear within awareness, like a movie appearing on a screen. The screen is not created by the movie changes, the screen remains. In this view, your life is not a soul traveling through different bodies. Your life is a temporary expression within a larger field. And if consciousness is like that, universal, shared, foundational, then reincarnation changes meaning. Because something universal doesn't need to migrate, it's already everywhere. Only a viewpoint ends. Only a local perspective disappears. And notice something practical. What we call self is strongly linked to the brain. When the brain changes, the person changes. Injury can alter personality. Disease can erode memory. Certain chemicals can shift the entire emotional world. This doesn't prove that consciousness cannot exist beyond the brain, but it does show how deeply identity depends on the brain's functioning. So here's the tension. If your you is brain-dependent, then what survives death? And if consciousness is universal and not owned, then what exactly reincarnates? Maybe not a personal self. Maybe only life continues expressing itself, again and again, without carrying a permanent owner from one body to the next. If that sounds unsettling, stay with it, because the next point often collapses the entire structure of reincarnation as a timeline story. Time itself may not be what we think. Part 3. The illusion of time. Reincarnation depends on linear time, past lives, this life, future lives. But time is strange. Even in daily experience, time doesn't behave consistently. A minute of fear feels longer than a minute of joy. A year in childhood feels endless. A year in adulthood passes quickly. And on a deeper level, physics itself challenges our ordinary sense of time. The past is not something you can touch. You only have memories now. The future is not something you can visit. You only have imagination now. The only thing you ever actually experience is now. So here's the question. If reality is only ever experienced as now, how does a past life exist in any practical sense? When people say, "I remember a past life," that memory is happening now, in the current brain, in the current moment. And memory is not a video recording. Memory is reconstruction. Each time you remember something, you rebuild it. That means memory can feel vivid and true while still being inaccurate, or partially invented, or shaped by suggestion. So when someone says, "This feeling proves I lived before," a rational mind has to ask, is this truly evidence of a different life? Or is it evidence of how powerful and flexible human memory is? There's also déjà vu, that eerie sensation of having lived a moment before. Déjà vu can be intense. It can feel like a tear in the fabric of time. But it's also a known psychological phenomenon, a kind of mismatch between recognition and recall. In other words, the mind can generate the feeling of "I've been here before" without a real past event to support it. So time, and the mind's relationship to time, may be creating experiences that resemble past life echoes without requiring reincarnation to be literally true. Now we move into the psychological core. Even if reincarnation isn't literally real, it might be emotionally necessary for many people. Part 4. The psychological truth, why we believe. Even if you never read a spiritual book, the fear of death still lives in the background of the human mind. Not always consciously, but it's there. The possibility of personal non-existence is one of the most destabilizing ideas a human being can face. So the mind searches for a defense, not because it's stupid, but because it's trying to survive. Reincarnation is a powerful defense against death anxiety. It turns death into a doorway, a transition, a new chapter. It gives the mind continuity. And beyond fear, reincarnation serves other needs: meaning, fairness, justice. Because without something beyond one lifetime, the world can look cruel and random. Some people suffer terribly. Some people live safely and comfortably. Some are born into war. Some are born into peace. Reincarnation offers a moral narrative. Everything balances out eventually. It says, what happens to you makes sense in a larger arc. Now, this idea can be comforting, but it can also become dangerous if it's used to explain away suffering. A rational spirituality must be careful here. Believing everything happens for a reason can slip into blaming victims. So we need to hold this with maturity. Reincarnation can be a meaning system, but meaning systems can become excuses. Another reason we believe is grief. When we lose someone, the finality is unbearable. Reincarnation softens it. It suggests reunion. It whispers, you'll meet again. And then there's ego. Let's be honest, A part of us simply wants to continue, not as an abstract life force, but as me, my story, my perspective, my continuity. Reincarnation can be the ego's preferred afterlife because it doesn't require surrender, only transformation. And there's one more layer. Human beings are storytelling machines. We don't just experience events, we narrate them. We turn chaos into meaning. We connect dots. We build continuity across time because discontinuity feels unsafe. So reincarnation is not merely a belief about the afterlife. It's a psychological technology, a way to reduce fear, increase meaning, and preserve identity. Now let's ask, even if these needs explain the belief, why does it feel so real? Part 5. Why it feels real. Sometimes reincarnation doesn't feel like a belief. It feels like memory, a sudden resonance, a pull, a knowing. There are stories, especially about young children, that seem to carry details they shouldn't have. There are documented accounts of children describing lives, places, and people that later appear to match real deceased individuals. Whether you accept these cases as proof or not, they matter psychologically, because they create the impression that reincarnation has evidence, and that impression spreads. It becomes part of cultural consciousness. Then there are other experiences, unexplained phobias, unexplainable attractions to certain eras, intense emotional reactions to places. People often interpret these as past life traces. But here's the rational alternative. The mind can generate strong feelings without knowing their source. Sometimes we carry implicit memory, information absorbed without conscious awareness. A story heard in childhood, a documentary playing in the background, a single image seen once. The mind forgets the source, but not the impression. Later, it returns as a mystery. This is one reason hypnosis-based past life regression is unreliable. Hypnosis increases suggestibility. It can create narratives that feel real without being historically accurate. And there's also something deeper. Many feelings we experience are not unique to us. Grief is human. Longing is human. Fear is human. Love is human. We sometimes mistake shared human experience for personal history. A deep nostalgia can feel like a past life, but it may simply be the emotional signature of being human. Carl Jung called some of these recurring patterns archetypes, deep structures in the psyche that appear across cultures. The hero, the mother, the exile, the seeker. These archetypes make us feel like we've lived something before because we have, not personally, but collectively. So maybe the past life feeling is not proof of literal reincarnation. Maybe it's resonance with the collective human story. The mind feels it and translates it into personal narrative. This must have happened to me. But it might have happened to humanity. It might be encoded in the shared psyche, in culture, in myth, in instinct. So why does it feel real? Because the mind is wired to create continuity. Because memory is creative. Because archetypes are deep. Because fear and longing need stories. Now we reach the point where the argument becomes gentle. If reincarnation isn't literally true, what remains? Part 6. A gentler truth. There is a kind of truth that doesn't require the ego to survive. A truth that stays meaningful even if we don't come back as the same person. First, nothing in nature vanishes. It changes form. Your body is made of ancient material. It will return to the ecosystem. It will become other forms of life. In a physical sense, you are already a continuous recycling. Second, your influence continues. Your words, your kindness, your harm, your decisions, everything you do ripples into other people's lives. That isn't mystical, it's ordinary reality. A teacher lives on in students. A parent lives on in children. A single act of love can change an entire life trajectory. Third, consciousness might be larger than the personal self. Even if the brain shapes experience, the deepest spiritual traditions suggest that awareness itself is not a personal possession. If that's true, then the continuation isn't you as an ego coming back. It's awareness expressing itself again in another form. Like waves rising again from the ocean, not the same wave, but the same water. So maybe reincarnation is not a literal personal return. Maybe it's life continuing. Maybe it's the universe staying alive through new eyes. And maybe the peace comes when we stop demanding personal continuity and start appreciating continuity itself. Epilogue. Beyond the story. So what do we do with all of this? We hold the mystery with honesty. We admit what we can't prove. We admit what we deeply want. And we stay careful not to confuse comfort with evidence. If reincarnation is true in a literal sense, then it will remain true without us forcing belief. And if it's not true literally, then we can still find something even deeper, that life is not wasted, that nothing is truly separate, that the end of a story does not mean the end of meaning. Maybe the greatest peace doesn't come from knowing you'll return. Maybe it comes from realizing you were never completely isolated to begin with. And this life, this one, is not a rehearsal. It's the only moment you can actually touch. So live it with clarity, live it with kindness, live it with courage, and let the mystery remain a mystery without fear. Because whether reincarnation is literal or symbolic, the invitation is the same. Wake up, be present, and live in a way that makes the universe more conscious through you.